society that we live in, and I know that's something that you certainly want to talk about. So the floor is yours, Jake.
Well, I'd have to say this is probably the most muted coverage of a Super Bowl that I have seen in my life. I've been alive for 33 years, going on 34, and it is amazing what happened. I mean, Sunday, both teams landed in Miami. Everything was feeling good. You had all the big-time people down there, including you and Rudy Reyes, and I was just sitting. I was having a nice, lazy Sunday with my girlfriend, and suddenly my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. And it wasn't ESPN. It wasn't TMZ or anything. It was one of my buddies. I'm a contributor for the Hooligan Hour podcast, and he texted me and he told me that Kobe Bryant was killed in a helicopter crash. And I sat back and went, "No, you're lying. There's nothing here. What are you talking about?" So I just started scouring the internet, trying to figure out what in the world is this true? Is this something I need to be looking at? And then, unfortunately, it was TMZ that did the report, and the rest was history. It was a shocker because the one thing I know about Kobe Bryant is that when Michael Jordan called it a career, people were looking for the next big thing, and Kobe Bryant was that. And the thing is, I love it how everybody says, I'll never forget everything he did as a basketball player. Honestly, I was more of a fan of him in his second life, as a dad, as a mentor to the NBA players, because you saw how many NBA players he impacted over the years after he retired at 37 years old. The last 4 years, he was always texting NBA players, telling them, "Hey, you need to get better with your jump shot. Hey, you need to get inside the lane faster." And he was like a coach out there.
Right.
And talking to a Laker fan about a couple of years ago, a good friend of mine, I'll just call him Banks, and I told him, I said, "Is it just me, or would I love to see Kobe Bryant as a coach someday?" And he was coaching his daughter's basketball team. And then the funny thing is I didn't like the way that this was reported. It shouldn't have been reported the way it was, because they started off by saying, like, all the daughters were gone. And then we found out the unfortunate news, and I give a lot of credit to a man named Jaron Jackson, Sirius XM NBA Radio. He had the task of going on that Sunday and reporting this with journalistic integrity, because the problem was on social media, we had no idea what the hell was true, what was false. There were reports coming out saying, like, all the daughters were on the helicopter. There were 5 people dead, including Kobe Bryant, and I was like, I just want to know what in the world is going on. That's all I was looking for.
Right.
So I just want to bring this brief shout out here. So we did find out that one of the daughters, Gianna, nicknamed Gigi, 13-year-old sensation, was going to be the next great, basketball player. John Altobelli, 56 years old. He was a JUCO celebrated baseball coach. His wife, Carrie, Alyssa Altobelli, his daughter, who was also on the same basketball team as Gigi. Christina Mauser, a girls basketball coach. Ara Zabayan, the pilot, and then Sarah Chester and her daughter, Peyton Chester. So just a reminder to everybody, I know that, this is about Kobe Bryant and his daughter, but remind yourself there are 2 other families that are mourning the loss of their loved ones here.
Right.
And just talking about it, I can't believe he is gone. I really can't. I know I'm saying a lot of ums right now, but
that's okay.
I don't know what to say about it. I mean, this is a guy who, won an Academy Award for a short film called Dear Basketball, and I finally got to watch it, and I was in love with it. It was 5 minutes long. He created it. He narrated it, and it was beautiful. I mean, it was about him sitting on starting off in the bed, animation, and he's just, shooting little paper, pieces of paper, rolling up in a ball and throwing it into a trash can. And that was how he was learning. And then there was always him, in his number 8 jersey, his number 24, holding up the Larry O'Brien trophy. His narration, it was just beautiful. And I just loved the way Bryant was able to grow up in front of our eyes, become something better than he was. And, we have to, I would be insulting the audience if I did not talk about what happened in Eagle County. It was a horrific moment for him. He went through a lot, and the one thing is, he didn't deny it. He settled it out of court in a civil suit. And he said that I understand that he believed that it wasn't consensual after all. And he was acquitted. And we just had to move on with it. And this guy could have lost everything. You know, his wife could have left him and all this kind of stuff. But he found a way through basketball, through family, through being a father, to being something even better. And that is why we say, when we wake up in the morning, even though he is gone, he is still going to be always the word that I never say about many players, but legend will always be said about Kobe Bryant.
Okay. All right, let me point out a couple things about Kobe Bryant. There was a point in my mind when he retired or even when he played that I actually thought that his intensity was so good that it wouldn't have bothered me if he ever became head coach of the LA Lakers. Magic Johnson failed miserably. He really, really did, because his ego was so big that he thought everybody could be as good as him. And don't get me wrong, I love Magic Johnson, and he's done a lot for the Lakers. But I actually thought with Bryant's mentality that it wouldn't have bothered me if he ever became the head coach of the Lakers. I felt he was actually the type of one that could do such a job. Never happened, but that's one of the things that entered my mind. We'll never know now. And, of course, Kobe will never know what he could have done after basketball, because he was already open to doing a lot of different opportunities. I know that ESPN has him on ESPN Plus, if I understand. So that was the beginning of some things. But, yeah, I think when you put things in perspective, and I've talked about it throughout the program, bad journalism, fake media is more prevalent nowadays in social media as well. And it's a joke. I'll mention it to you like I mentioned it to everybody else, okay? When the Ronald Reagan assassination attempt took place, I was watching ABC News coverage. Frank Reynolds ripped a lot of his colleagues in and out because he wasn't worried about it becoming first. It was a matter of making sure they get it right. So, you know, the news media failed because there's such a competition about getting it right first. Well, I don't care if it's Kobe Bryant or anybody else. Just because you're first doesn't mean you're the best. Some of the early lessons that I had in this industry occurred when I was working for the NBC affiliate in Miami behind the scenes, and I took a lot of pride that we were the first sportscast on at 20 minutes after the hour of 11, and the other ones would follow suit. And I worked very diligently behind the scenes to get these scores right, and I found a lot of situations for which, you know, the other stations didn't have the games, and we went on first. That's called victory, my man. Both you and Jake and anybody out there listening, you know, it wasn't a matter of getting it first. It's about getting it right. And with us starting first and getting scores that they didn't get, showed that we outworked our competition. I know I went off on two different tangents here, but I think that Coach Kobe Bryant was certainly NBA coaching mentality, and it's a shame that he never became the LA Lakers head coach, but his blueprint was written all over the franchise. And again, getting back to my point, okay, that Frank Reynolds is the guy that I will always idolize in our industry, because Frank Reynolds certainly knew what it was like. He was ahead of his time. If Frank Reynolds saw what we see nowadays with this media, he would do cartwheels and turn over in his grave and gag. That's how good Frank Reynolds was.
It is the same thing you say about Dan Patrick, you know, because when I went into the school of sportscasting, I didn't know what to expect. I thought it was going to be another Illinois media school, honestly. And when I met Dan, and I asked him questions, and I even talked to him, you know, one-on-one, he said to me, I don't want you to be first. It's always good to have longevity by being right.
Exactly.
And I'm not going to say the guy's name of ABC News, but he knows who he is. He comes out on live television on an ABC News special report and says, I believe that all of Kobe's daughters were on board as well. And everybody went crazy over it.
Right.
And there were ABC affiliates that continued on with the story, and then they found out they were dead wrong. And it all started with TMZ. And just to bring up a preview, I'm going to have a friend of mine from the Dan Patrick School of Sportscasting in 93.9 The Game in Orlando. Mike Tuck is going to come on my podcast tomorrow. We're taping it. And one of our things we're going to talk about is the failure of news journalism, of how they got this wrong, how we didn't know what was going on, and why TMZ putting out the names before everybody was identified and before the press conference was illegal. And it's going to be an interesting conversation. But, yeah, that's the stuff that really just got on my nerves, because I love this business. But, you know something, Scott? It really got on my nerves when I heard Shaquille O'Neal, Rick Fox, all say the same thing. Rick Fox was on TNT with Ernie Johnson, Kenny Smith, and Shaquille O'Neal. And Rick Fox is talking about the story. And I'm going to go back to a guy named King Rice. This is Rick Fox's best friend. He's the Iona basketball coach. He calls up Rick Fox on Sunday afternoon, and he can't get a hold of him. Rick finally answers the phone, and he thinks, okay, I know about what's going on with Kobe Bryant. I'm sure they just want to talk about Kobe. And Rick said that King was in absolute tears. He just said, quote, "I'm glad that you're alive." Rick goes, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "Well, I heard from a report that you were on a helicopter where Kobe Bryant was killed." And when Rick Fox says something like that during a tribute, that means news media, you failed. You look foolish. And you made a mockery of journalistic integrity. It doesn't matter if you are first. It matters if you're right. And you didn't do that. And you caused such a mess.
Jake, I think what I want to stray away from basketball real quick with this and kind of just get back to this element of family that we're talking about. And you outlined it by, further telling us, obviously the names of the other victims that aren't getting the coverage that they deserve in the wake of this. I want to send my condolences, of course, to the Altabellis, to the Mausers, and then to the Bryant family, of course, Vanessa and her three surviving daughters. Kobe's father, I believe his name is Joe Bryant, and his uncle Chubby Cox, both former NBA players. I said this earlier in the show, but I feel like it bears repeating because this has been one of the harder broadcasts that I've had to do, even as somebody who wasn't a rather active basketball fan growing up. Loss is something that I feel like we're all going to have to deal with at one point or another, and I understand that in the last 4 days this has been kind of a cliche, but you just really need to tell the people that are around you, even people that you've had differences with, just let them know, how much that you care, because at the end of the day, Scott said it earlier, and it's a universal truth. You never know when one breath is going to be your last. Just imagining, like Vanessa waking up every morning and her daughters and just the surviving members of these families waking up and expecting to hear, the voice of their now lost family members, or a text message or a phone call, and not being able to do that, not having really any way to get access to them. I think that's something that's really, being lost here. It's, not to say that they didn't cherish them during their lives, but, how do we move on, knowing that, these people, are going to be without, those that they held so dearest. And I just want, just everybody, who's watching the news, anybody in the media that's reporting it, and to those that are out there, just know that, give respect to the people who are dealing with this, because this really isn't something easy. It's more than just, 48 minutes, 4 quarters, and 5 NBA championships and an MVP for Kobe Bryant. It's, it's life, it's Mamba mentality, it's everything bigger than the sport itself. And I really think we need to just take time and just, let the people in your life know that you care, because, you never know when the light's going to go out, and unfortunately there's no battery to turn that light back on.
Yeah, I mean, again, we've talked about a lot. You've seen some of my posts on social media. You have to live every day as if we're your last. Tomorrow's not a given.
No, it's not.
The man upstairs will tell you when time is to check out, and you do it. But again, Jake, I'm going to get back to what I've said to a lot.